The text came in just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. It wasn't the chime I usually heard, this one had a different tone. I'd updated my messaging app the night before and hadn't adjusted the settings yet. The new sound was sharper, more hollow, like a hammer tapping glass. Maybe that's why I looked. Or maybe it was instinct. I wiped the coffee spoon on a napkin, reached for the phone, and tapped the screen. Unknown number, you should know what your wife's really working on. Below it, a photo. The metallic taste of the coffee hit the back of my throat, sharp and sour. I blinked at the image, trying to process what I was looking at. Rachel. My wife of 11 years. Laughing, chin tilted slightly, one hand on the table. The other, intertwined with a man's. Not just touching. Holding. Fingers locked. His face was angled just enough for me to recognize him. Logan Matthews. Her graphic design mentor. They were in some kind of small cafe, wood-paneled walls, natural light. I could tell from the background it wasn't anywhere local. Definitely not the student lounge at the design center. This place looked curated. Private. Romantic. The timestamp at the top of the message said 7:12 a.m. I hadn't even kissed her goodbye yet. I stood there in the quiet of our Birmingham kitchen, the hum of traffic outside muffled by double-pane glass, and felt everything inside me stall. Not explode. Just pause. The coffee mug shook slightly in my hand. I set it down carefully on the counter. The silence around me felt exaggerated. The refrigerator kicked on with a low groan. Our daughter's backpack rested against the bench near the door, half-zipped. A sticky note with Rachel's handwriting, dentist appointment Thursday at 3. Fluttered at the edge of the fridge. My thumb hovered over the message. I zoomed in. Her smile was real. Relaxed. The kind she hadn't worn in our kitchen in months. For a few seconds, I tried to make it mean something else. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was staged. Maybe it was a cruel joke. But even as those thoughts surfaced, they crumbled under the weight of what I already knew but hadn't said aloud. This wasn't just an affair. This was a different version of Rachel. One I hadn't been invited to meet. I backed up the photo. Saved the image. Sent a copy to my email and another to a private drive I used for freelance design work. I didn't respond to the number. I knew better than to show my hand. Instead, I walked to the sink and dumped the rest of the coffee. The drain hissed as the heat met steel. I rinsed the mug and placed it upside down on the drying rack, watching the last drop fall. Then I went upstairs, as if nothing had happened. I woke our daughter, helped her brush her hair, made her a sandwich for lunch, and drove her to school. I waved at her teacher, chatted about the upcoming field trip, and said I'd check my work schedule. I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I refused to give anything away. Back home, I sat at the dining table and opened my laptop. I clicked through Rachel's shared calendar. Her next class project work session was tomorrow night. Blocked out for 3 hours. Location, Studio C. I opened a spreadsheet and labeled the first row, date, time, behavior, evidence. This wasn't about impulse. This was about truth. I stared at the cursor blinking in the first cell. I didn't know what the next days would hold, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to shatter. I was going to build. Before Rachel became someone I had to investigate, she was my favorite person in every room. We met at a small gallery showing in downtown Birmingham. I was helping set up lighting for a friend's photography exhibit, and she was hanging up posters for a local design collective. I remember how confidently she held a staple gun in one hand and a coffee in the other, laughing as if she knew every line of the script already. She wore red Converse and carried a notebook full of typography sketches. We talked about fonts, of all things, how Helvetica was too clean, how Garamond felt like a secret. She had this way of making anything sound intimate. We fell fast, the way you do when you're still convinced everything good is permanent. Back then, our world was built on long nights, pizza boxes on the floor, paint samples on the walls, and Spotify playlists that bled into sunrise. We renovated the kitchen ourselves the first summer in the house, arguing over tile colors and laughing through grout dust. On weekends, we'd take our daughter Nora to Railroad Park and let her chase ducks near the pond. There were nights when we read side by side in bed, Rachel curled up with design books, me buried in contracts from the office. The shift wasn't sudden. It never is. At first, it was small things, Rachel taking more late-night walks, saying she needed space to think. She signed up for a part-time design course downtown, which felt reasonable. She said she wanted to rediscover her creativity, stretch herself. I encouraged her. Why wouldn't I? She bought new clothes, mostly neutral earth tones. Said they made her feel cleaner. She came home late from class more often. Sometimes she smelled like a different cologne, but I told myself it was just the art building, shared spaces, eccentric instructors. I noticed she started locking her phone screen faster. But then again, who didn't these days? It was easy to explain things away. That's the trouble with trust, it makes excuses for people. One night, after she went to bed early, I stayed downstairs and opened our shared iPad. It was mostly used by Nora for cartoons, but the Messages app was synced. I told myself I just wanted peace of mind. I didn't get it. There weren't dozens of messages, just one thread, unsaved under the name L. The tone was unmistakable. It wasn't sexual, not explicitly. It was worse. Intimate. Familiar. Inside jokes. References to typography and design work, little affirmations that sounded like relationship scaffolding. L, I saved you the last matcha bar. Told you I'd remember. L, your font pairing last night. I'm still thinking about it. Rachel, you always see the things no one else does. I took a screenshot, my pulse steady in that unnatural way adrenaline tricks you. I emailed it to myself, then closed the iPad. Later that week, I began checking our online bank account every evening. I filtered expenses by her card. There were consistent charges near the design center, cafes, bookstores, a boutique hotel I didn't recognize. One Thursday, while she was supposedly at a workshop, her card logged a purchase for a two-person dinner at a place called Foundry 37. I checked the timestamp, 7:46 p.m. That night, she'd come home claiming they'd run over class time critiquing a branding project. She looked tired. I remember she hugged me longer than usual. That made it worse. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't after a confession. I was after the full story. I reached out to Caleb, my older brother. He's a financial analyst and lives in Atlanta. We're not close in a day-to-day way, but he's meticulous and rational. The kind of person who never misplaces his keys or emotions. Off the record, I said, "Can I ask you something personal?" He listened while I laid out the details, briefly, cleanly. I told him I suspected Rachel was seeing someone. That I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I needed to prepare. There was a long pause before he spoke. Make copies. Of everything. The truth won't scream. It whispers. That line stayed with me. So I started listening for whispers. Rachel came home one night humming. Actually humming. She hadn't done that in months. I asked her how class went. She smiled without meeting my eyes. Logan says my line work is getting bolder. She said his name easily, like a coworker. I nodded, filed it away. Logan. Now the L in her messages had a full name. I checked his website, he ran a boutique design firm and taught part-time. His bio was filled with words like emotive harmony and visceral composition. Every photo showed him in different stages of curated messiness, rolled sleeves, ink on his hands, glasses tucked into his shirt collar. I downloaded every page of the site. Saved his schedule. Logged screenshots of his class lists and promotional posts that tagged Rachel's handle. The hardest part wasn't discovering the affair. It was realizing how long I'd been outside the version of our marriage she'd rewritten. Even when she sat beside me on the couch, I was miles away. A placeholder. A memory she hadn't decided whether to keep or discard. I started a new file that night, called it Quiet Proof. Password protected. Inside it, I kept the timeline, receipts, messages, and photos. Each piece fit into a narrative she didn't think I'd notice. But I did. Because I'd seen Rachel's design work for years. I knew how she layered meaning. I knew how she built from draft to final. This was her final. And I was almost ready to turn the page. I didn't sleep the night I created the folder called Quiet Proof. I sat at the dining table, lit only by the overhead pendant lamp and the dull glow of my laptop screen. Rachel had gone to bed an hour earlier, claiming a headache. I waited until I heard her breathing shift into sleep before I opened the files again. I wasn't obsessing, I was preparing. Every photo, bank transaction, and message lived inside that folder like bricks in a wall I was slowly constructing. And unlike her design layers, mine couldn't be airbrushed away. The next morning, after dropping Nora off at school, I sat in my car and called a name I'd had saved for over a year but never dialed, Erin Salter, family law attorney. We'd met at a friend's housewarming once. She'd mentioned quietly that her firm specialized in quiet dissolutions, cases where dignity mattered more than drama. She took the call right away and scheduled me for that afternoon. Her office sat on the 4th floor of a converted textile building downtown, raw brick walls, minimalist decor, a long wooden conference table that smelled faintly of lemon oil and old paper. She wore a dark green blouse and a face that gave away nothing. "Walk me through everything," she said. So I did. In clean order. No tears. No bitterness. Just facts, Rachel's workshops, the messages from Logan, the dinner receipts, the locked phone behavior, the emotional distance. Erin listened with the kind of focus that made you feel like you were watching her build the case in real time. When I finished, she nodded once. "This isn't just emotional betrayal," she said. "If we can show financial redirection or compromised parenting time, we can build an argument for full custody and a favorable division of assets." "What about Nora?" I asked. "That's where you need to be perfect," she said. "Documentation. Stability. Evidence of your involvement in every part of her life." I left with a long list of action items and a strange sense of peace. Not because the problem was solved, but because the plan was clear. The first thing I did was start a custody log. I used a spreadsheet with columns, date, activity, notes, missed by Rachel, Y/N. Every school drop-off, bedtime story, math worksheet, and dentist visit I logged with time stamps and details. I included photos when I could, nothing invasive, just snapshots of me packing Nora's lunch, helping her with homework, walking her to the bus. I wasn't trying to curate fatherhood. I was proving it. Next, I got a small external camera and installed it near our front door, hidden inside a fake light fixture. I didn't need audio. Just visual timestamps. When Rachel came and went. Who she left with. How often she said she had design critique nights that ended at 1 a.m. I sent the video feeds, encrypted, to a secure cloud folder shared only with Erin. I also stopped using our shared credit card. I opened my own checking account and rerouted my paycheck. Quietly. Methodically. When Rachel noticed, I told her I was managing a temporary freelance budget. She didn't press. At night, when she was asleep, I updated the Quiet Proof folder. I added the screenshots of her social media, how she started liking Logan's posts at 2 a.m., the way she tagged her design work with vague, poetic captions. My brother Caleb helped me map our joint financials. We sat over a laptop at his kitchen island while his kids watched cartoons. "She's siphoning funds," he said, pointing to 4 recurring charges to a digital payment platform tied to Logan's business. They're small enough to look like consulting fees. But they add up. "Do I confront her now?" I asked. "Not yet," he said. "Let the pattern continue. Let her dig the trench." The one person I hadn't told yet was Nora. And I wouldn't, until everything was stable. But I did tell my best friend, Drew. We met at a late-night diner off First Avenue. He was one of those people who wore loyalty like armor, big hands, loud laugh, always knew the waitress by name. "You serious?" he said after I told him. "Dead serious." He sat back, staring out the window. Damn. Rachel always seemed. She was. For a long time. He looked back at me. So what now? Now I build a case. Then I build a new life. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he slid a small worn notebook across the table. "What's this?" "It's empty," he said. "Start writing in it. Not for the courts. For you. You've been holding a lot." I started writing the next morning, just a paragraph or two. Not about Rachel. About me. About how I was holding up. About Nora's laughter echoing down the hallway. About the house not feeling like a minefield anymore. About the ache that stayed in the quiet moments and how I was learning to breathe through it. That weekend, I filed the preliminary petition for divorce through Aaron's office. Included in the packet was the custody proposal, full legal and physical custody to me, visitation rights to Rachel based on stability and schedule alignment. We didn't ask for spousal support. But we requested a division of property based on financial misconduct tied to the affair. The evidence packet had grown to over 100 pages. I printed a copy. Bound it. Labeled it, revised draft. I placed it in my safe beside the deed to our home. Then I did something simple. I went upstairs to our bedroom. Took the wedding photo off the wall. The one where we're laughing, young, windblown, squinting into the sun. I didn't break it. I didn't rip it. I just turned it around and leaned it against the shelf, face down. A placeholder for goodbye. Rachel got home just after 9. The house was dark except for the warm overhead light above the dining table. I was already sitting there, the folder in front of me. She didn't see me at first, her keys clinked in the bowl, her coat hit the hook. She was humming softly. That hurt more than anything. I cleared my throat. "Can we talk?" She froze mid-step. I watched her eyes adjust to the light. She stepped slowly into the room and saw the folder. She glanced at it, then at me. "What's this?" "Take a seat." Her hands fidgeted. I could almost see the gears turning. She sat opposite me, silent. I opened the folder and slid it toward her. Inside, screenshots of messages, hotel charges, Logan's design invoices tagged to our account, the custody proposal. She didn't move. "Rachel," I said gently, "you don't have to lie. Not tonight." She took a shaky breath, then flipped to the second page. The color drained from her face. "You've been going through my stuff." "I've been protecting my daughter," I replied. Her mouth opened to object, then closed again. She knew. She knew everything was real. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough." She swallowed hard. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "I'm sure it wasn't." "That doesn't change what it is." The quiet hung thick between us. I leaned back in my chair and studied her, this woman I once adored without hesitation. She looked small now. Not because she was weak, but because I had finally stepped back far enough to see the whole picture. "You don't even seem angry," she said. "I've already been through the anger," I replied. "You just weren't here for it." I reached behind me and lifted the framed wedding photo off the sideboard. I turned it around and set it on the table between us, face down. Her eyes welled. "That's not fair," she said. "What's not fair," I said quietly, "is spending 11 years building a home while you were sketching your exit in the margins." She exhaled, one hand pressed to her mouth. I pointed to the custody documents. "This isn't punishment. It's protection. Nora stays with me. You'll have visitation. And I'm not pursuing anything further, so long as this stays clean." Her voice cracked. "Is this really what you want?" "No," I said. "But it's what I need." She nodded slowly. "You already filed?" I've consulted. You can have your lawyer reach out to Aaron Salter tomorrow. And if I don't sign, you can fight it, I said, still calm. But I've already won it on paper. Every receipt, every missed pickup, every lie. It's all there. She stared at the folder. Her hands trembled slightly. I was lost, she whispered. Logan made me feel like someone else, I said. I know. Her lips parted in shock. Then why are you being so civil? Because I'm not here to destroy you, I said. I'm here to build a life without you. She said nothing. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the quiet ticking of the old kitchen clock. Then, she reached for the pen beside the folder and signed the last page. She slid it back to me. I'll be gone in the morning, she said. I nodded. Take your time. Just, not too much of it. She stood, turned away, then paused by the doorway. Do you think she'll forgive me? She asked. That's for her to decide, I said. But I'm going to make sure she has every reason to heal. Rachel didn't look back. I sat alone in that light for a while longer, listening to the house settle. Then I turned the wedding photo back over and placed it carefully in the drawer. Not broken. Just put away. The papers went through 2 weeks later. Rachel didn't challenge the custody proposal. Her lawyer negotiated small adjustments, longer summer visits, a shared birthday weekend, but otherwise, she signed every page without resistance. It was as if something inside her had snapped loose. The part that wanted to fight had dissolved into the ink of her own decisions. Nora stayed with me. That first morning after Rachel left, I woke early and sat on the edge of Nora's bed. She was already blinking up at me. Mom's not here, she said plainly. I nodded. No, honey. She's living somewhere else now. But we're still a team. You and me. She asked for waffles. We made them together, her hand clumsy on the whisk, batter splattered across the counter. It was messy. It was perfect. I didn't throw out Rachel's things right away. I packed them carefully, her sketchpads, her photo albums, the notes she left on the fridge. I sealed each box and labeled them with clean, even lettering. Then I drove them to her sister's place on the north side. Rachel didn't come out to meet me. Her sister opened the door, nodded silently, and took the boxes one at a time. I said thank you. Then I left. The wedding photo stayed in the drawer. A few weeks later, I changed the house. Not dramatically. Just enough. I moved the couch, repainted Nora's room pale yellow, replaced the art on the living room wall with a framed print of the Birmingham skyline. I wanted the space to feel like ours, not a museum of what used to be. I started running in the mornings. Nothing ambitious, just a mile or two around the neighborhood. It cleared my mind in ways I hadn't expected. I'd return home sweating, lungs sharp with cold air, and find Nora on the porch feeding the cat or reading. Drew came by more often. Sometimes we sat in the garage with mugs of black coffee, no music, just silence and shared breath. You ever think about dating again? He asked once. I laughed. I barely have time to shave. But later that night, I opened the notebook he gave me. I didn't write about Rachel. I wrote about Nora's giggle. About the sound of the wind at 6 a.m. About the first night I slept through without waking in panic. I called the new journal Draft 2. One quiet Sunday, I launched a blog. I didn't tell anyone, not even Drew. I called it Margin Notes. It wasn't about revenge or heartbreak. It was about rebuilding. About single fatherhood. About what it meant to start over without bitterness. At first, I thought no one would read it. But slowly, comments trickled in. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. I've been where you are. You gave me a roadmap. This saved my marriage, or at least, saved me. That meant something. That gave purpose to pain. One evening, Nora came home from school with a drawing. Crayon on printer paper. The two of us standing in front of the house, the cat perched on the porch rail. She'd written in block letters at the top, "Me and Dad, my favorite team." I tacked it to the fridge where the old sticky notes used to be. Later that night, I took the wedding photo out of the drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't stare long. I just placed it gently into a shoebox, taped it shut, and set it in the attic. Not forgotten. Just finished. I stood on the porch afterward, mug in hand, watching the last light slip behind the rooftops. The air smelled like fresh grass and possibility. For the first time in a long while, I felt something like peace. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just steady. And that was enough.